Hey there guys, this is Mike Kim. Welcome back to my Diablo 3 channel. As we all know, the patch 13 is out live on the beta right now, and they've brought down the servers about 36 hours after launching the patch. And when that happens, we go on the calculator and anticipate new builds for our characters. And in this case, before the servers went down, I was playing a Witch Doctor, and it got me to thinking to whether or not the Witch Doctor would be viable if you compare it to the Wizard, and I really think so, because the Wizard is all about burst, and the Witch Doctor on the other hand has a lot more mobility when you think about it, because their abilities allow them to move a lot more. So this is very beneficial in any kind of situation, just the mobility of being able to reposition yourself and to put yourself in the advantageous place to either deal damage or to survive better, because if you're allowed to move and DPS at the same time, DPS meaning damage per second or damage enemies at the same time, you will pretty much be able to be invulnerable in that sense. Now I've put together a few builds, but this one, which we're going to be focusing on in this video, is a solo build. And in this solo build, you'll see that I rely quite a bit on pets, because this is one of the classes in Diablo 3 right now which focuses a lot on their minions, and they deal a lot with minions like Gargantuan here. I'm not sure if it's a golem or if it's a Bigfoot of some sort, because it looks like it's made of rock. Of course, his rune skills changes what he looks like. Here is the Bruiser, Restless Giant, Wrathful Protector, Humongoid, and a Big Stinker. I picked the poison one because he does AoE 30% of your weapon damage to everybody that's close by. It doesn't say how far is the range or how huge is the radius of the AoE, but on the other hand, I can always imagine that he will be surrounded by enemies at all times, and I will probably be standing pretty close to him, and this will make it so that whatever is close to me and close to him at the same time will be taking 30% of my weapon damage all the time. One thing you'll need to know about the Witch Doctor is that they are restricted to certain weapons, and in the beta as it is, I was actually carrying a two-handed weapon that I crafted myself, because the one-handed daggers, dirges, or whatever you want to call them, along with the offhand voodoo dolls that they carry, as you can see in the picture behind here, he's carrying an offhand voodoo doll. I found that the damage was a lot lower as compared to carrying a big two-handed weapon. This may not be the case for the Wizard, because the Wizard is all about casting things quickly and moving on, because they can deal very big amounts of damage, so they'll just cast one huge chunky spell and they'll move to the next group and cast another huge chunky spell. But for the Witch Doctor, it seems that casting spells, especially things like Grasp of the Dead, you'll see here that it does weapon damage based on physical damage based on your weapon damage here. I took Groping Eels because I got this at level 7 or level 8. Increases the damage done to a percentage of your weapon damage per second as physical. This actually means when I was carrying a weapon that was 17 to 20, 17 minimum damage to 20 maximum damage, it would bounce between that amount per second. So if let's say it's 104% weapon damage, it wasn't. In the game itself, it was probably about 20% or 15% increase. What was happening is that when I cast Grasp of the Dead on the ground, everything was taking 20 damage for every second they were standing in there, which means everything would die. And this is probably great for normal mode. I don't know whether it will be just as effective in Nightmare and Inferno, but you really need to take note that this ability is not actually meant to damage. It's supposed to slow people down. Hands reach out from the ground, slowing enemy movement by 50% and dealing 40% weapon damage per second. But yet it does good damage right now in normal mode. So if you're thinking about a build that works in normal mode and could work in Nightmare mode and later on Hell and Inferno, this might definitely work. I did not pick up Fire Bats yet because I was level 10 when the server shut down. But from what people are telling me, that it's a huge chunk of your DPS and it actually had to be nerfed or something. But Right now, this calculator is not accurate to the patch 13 beta, so I couldn't get the numbers on it. I will probably find out in a few days and I'll get back to you guys. But this is probably going to be our main damage dealer as a solo PvE, in addition to having the zombie dogs and gargantuan. I'll get to that later. Fire bats actually takes a lot of mana because it's a channeling ability, so when you cast it, you just you hold down the button and bats will keep flying out of your hands somehow. And this poison dart, I actually mixed it with a rune skill that replenishes mana. As you can see here, the golden rune stone, you actually gain 295 mana every time a dart hits a target. This is not accurate to patch 13 right now, because the rune skills are actually based on your level and you unlock them based on your level, and they are supposed to scale, but we do not know that yet because I've yet to level beyond level 13 to go and find the runes from there. And Grasp of the Dead, like I mentioned earlier, is pretty much a fairly good crowd control, and it deals damage at the same time. You'll cast it on a big group of people to prevent them from coming too close to you. Cast fire bats. If they're getting too close, they should be dead by the time they get to you, and if not, you'll have zombie dogs that will be tanking them for you. And if they are still not dead yet, there's still the gargantuan next to you, and if they are still not dead yet, there is Sacrifice, which will actually explode your zombie dogs, dealing 200% of your weapon damage as physical to all enemies within 12 yards, and not to mention you have 3 zombie dogs. That is 600% of your weapon damage. That is huge. Alright, and what it does here is, I took Necks of Kin. Each Sacrifice dog has a 55% chance to resurrect as a new zombie dog. So assuming you have 3 zombie dogs and each of them have a 55% chance, what are the chances that you do not have a zombie dog at the end of the day? Yeah, probably about 50% or 25%. My maths isn't that great, so yeah, you'll figure it out. And here I took Leeching Beasts. Your dogs gain 50% of damage dealt as life, half of which heals you. Zombie dogs do not deal a lot of damage in the game right now. It does very, very little, but it goes well with this passive ability here called Blood Ritual. 15% of all mana costs are paid with life. In addition, you regenerate 2% of your maximum life per second. So, and this one, passive skill Circle of Life, whenever an enemy dies within 12 yards, there is a 5% chance that a zombie dog will automatically emerge. I am not too sure about this. I'm still on the fence because I already have an active skill that forces 3 zombie dogs to be out all the time every 1 minute. There's a cooldown of 1 minute on it. But having 5%, assuming I use Sacrifice often enough, it might be useful. But if you're going through normal and you realize that you don't ever have to use Sacrifice because the zombie dogs and the gargantuan as well as your fire bats are killing them quickly enough, and you don't need the burst damage to actually bother with Sacrifice, then it might be a good skill to switch out. Because don't forget, at the end of the day, you're going to be trying to make a build that will get you through normal mode as efficiently as possible, so you can enter nightmare mode, and from there you'll be tweaking your build, because at level 30 you'll have all your skills by then. You might not have all your rune skills, but you will already have all your skills. You'll be tweaking from there for nightmare mode, because the enemies there are a bit more difficult, they have more life and they hit harder. You'll need to think about survivability more. So this build that I've provided is supposed to bring you through normal, solo PvE. This is also assuming that you're not in a group and you are not with a bunch of friends, or you don't intend to be in a public game very often. My last and final passive skill is you can have 4 zombie dogs out at once. The health of your zombie dogs and gargantuan is increased by 60%. Once again, this is possibly not needed, but because this is a solo PvE build and you have nobody else to rely on except for yourself, the gargantuan could be very useful. And don't forget, as long as your gargantuan is out, anything nearby takes 30% of your weapon damage per second. Now at level 9, my weapon damage was 17 to 20, which was a 2-handed war axe, if I'm not mistaken, which I got from crafting from using the blacksmith. It took me about 15-20 minutes to level up my blacksmithing again. They made it cheaper to level it up, so in the recent patch 13, they made it cheaper to level up the blacksmith, but they added they tried to balance out some of the the items that you would craft. Some of them were a bit more expensive, some of them were cheaper. So I think right now it's like ready for launch, that sort of thing, but it's just not right where they want it yet, or at least in the crafting department. So we'll see more on that. But anyway, my weapon damage was 17 to 20, so if it did 30% of the damage all the time, that would be about 7 damage per second. And in normal mode at level 13, mobs have about 20 to 30 HP. Normal mobs, we're not talking about the elites, we're not talking about King Leoric or the Skeleton King. And this is enough to say that mobs last about 3 to 5 seconds, unless for the larger mobs, the blue mobs, the unique ones. So this is in itself is very useful. So because of that, I decided to pick up the passive skill that would increase the amount of HP it would have. Also, another thing you should take to note is that if you have pets, you have minions, they are also considered allies. So if you see that your pets are running low on HP, you can actually pick up health globes. Even though you're at full life, they will still heal your allies. And if you find that you have too much HP and you feel that you could be doing more damage and stuff like that, you could also pick up vermin. What this does is your plague of toads, corpse spiders, locust swarm, and fire bats do 20% more damage. This is very huge. This is a significant amount because these fire bats and stuff like that, fire bats, like I mentioned, this is the main spammable ability you're going to be using, other than poison dart, which is supposed to be replenishing mana for your fire bats, because the rest of the abilities are on a fairly long cooldown and you won't have to cast them as often as fire bats. So this will basically increase all the damage you do by 20%. And another one that I was considering was this one, but it's very specific to your items. All your pets get 100% of the benefit of your thorns and life regeneration items. Now I'm not sure how the itemization works at level 26. Here it says it unlocks, but if you are carrying a lot of thorns items as a witch doctor or life regeneration items, I'm not sure whether that is a good thing, because when you're leveling or trying to level, you're pretty much just going to be trying to burn down enemies as quickly as possible. So this may not be as useful as you think at the lower levels, but at higher levels, when you can reflect more, that might be a better idea. But anyway, this is it for the Witch Doctor solo PvE skill build. Look forward to seeing you soon. I'll be building a group PvE build for the Witch Doctor, and a PvP one, or at least one that I intend to use. And once again guys, don't be afraid to experiment. Good night.